Apogea, another indie top-down MMO, just launched a big public, likely to be final playtest, peaking on Steam at nearly 6,000 concurrent players. When a new game comes out, you generally hear a lot of comparisons. With Apogea, you're going to hear a lot of Tibia and RuneScape. Like a lot of games that are popping up recently, Apogea also takes that old school, classic, more retro looking approach. I recently got my hands on the game for the first time, but before continuing any further, real quick, be sure to sub to the channel if you haven't already and follow me on Twitch where I'm streaming MMO content daily. Okay, so first and foremost, the hours I have with this game are pretty limited still, so keep that in mind. This is coming from the perspective of a fresh player looking at it for the first time and his first hours on the game. Right out the gate, I could immediately tell what they were going for. They were going for that old school, less hand-holding experience where you have to pay attention to everything and actually read. Something that, let's face it, a lot of us don't really do anymore when it comes to MMOs. Movement felt and looked pretty good, and I was very pleased to see that despite there being a tile-based system that was kind of present with the combat at least, it wasn't present with movement. Not that the tile system is bad, I mean, look at how well RuneScape is doing. It just really isn't my personal cup of tea. The combat, however, does remind me of RuneScape a bit, namely with the auto-attacking more than anything else. If you like the classic back and forth auto-attack experience that RuneScape has, you'll probably vibe with Apogea as it does much of the same, early on at least. And by the way, I hope I'm actually saying that name right, Apogea, Apogea. Apogea actually sounds fantastic. Anyways, one thing that you'll notice with Apogea is that it does a lot of things different to your traditional MMO. For example, you can attack a target by clicking on it, but you can also attack it by hitting spacebar, which will auto-run your character to the target and begin attacking it. Hitting spacebar again changes target, and your character auto-runs and attacks the new target. If you're an MMO anti, it's pretty much tab plus attack put together. Tibia fans probably feel more at home with this, along with the battle list feature. Tab, I believe, is actually reserved for PvP targeting in this game, apparently, according to the options at least. When it comes to mobs, they're a lot more tough, so expect to be farming mobs around your level, and as you may suspect, leveling is also a slow process. Quests, to no surprise, were a lot more difficult compared to what we're used to today. For example, this quest here had me searching for a lantern in a general area. This wasn't a crazy challenging quest by any means, but these quests certainly require the player to figure things out, especially with all the other unique features or elements baked into Apogea, and can become very time consuming in the process. Oftentimes, not because the quest is some challenging riddle that you can't figure out, but because you're simply not familiar with game mechanics. To give you an idea of how different questing is in this game, or an example to what I'm saying, with this quest, you literally have to type in chat and talk to the NPC. Sometimes you have to type a specific keyword to even complete a quest. Also, these NPCs may not even be around, by the way, considering a lot of them just flat out leave when it's nighttime. There are a ton of people that love this in contrast to the brain-dead questing most MMOs have now. If you're a brand new player coming into this without any guidance, expect to spend a lot of the early hours just reading things, looking for things, and trying to understand systems and where to go. On another note, I thought graphically the game had a charm to it. It's definitely old school, but you can tell it has that modern day flair to it, making the game not feel outdated despite its concept. Visually, I think this game is going to immediately appeal to anyone that's into these older retro looking games. However, as mentioned before, there are a lot of things that it does differently compared to modern day MMOs, including the UI UX. From the gear and inventory on the right to your character stats on the left, this game does things a bit differently, UI related or not, and it will take some time to get used to and learn. If you're accustomed to Tibia or RuneScape, these systems will be a lot more familiar with you, but if you're a modern day MMO anti, it's going to take some time to get used to. As much as I appreciate some of the things that they're doing, such as interacting with NPCs, I do think there are some things that they could make adjustments on or two that would improve the new player experience while still preserving their core concept as a game. The biggest downside to old school games outside of graphics is that a lot of them just really lack in the quality of life department and poor new player experiences, usually stemming from the new player being completely lost and frustrated with what to do or what they have to do, or how they can even do said thing. For example, in Ultima Online, sometimes you quite literally have to drag items from your inventory and drop them on top of the NPC to give the item to them in order to complete a quest. Whereas modern day MMOs, you interact with the NPC and at the end of it, you're given an option to turn in. Someone who's never played the game will not know to drag an item from your inventory and drop it on the NPC on their own. This is an example, in my opinion, of something that was present in old school games that doesn't need to be reimagined in 2026. And by removing it, it wouldn't be at the expense of that old school, more challenging experience. In Apogea, I like the concept they're going for, and I want them to preserve that. I think they should, but there are some things they could change to make their game more new player friendly. Now, I know some people are going to immediately get defensive over that, but hear me out here. What I mean is there are things they could touch up on that make the game easier to understand, not easier to play. Let me give you a couple of examples. The first being make NPCs a little bit more distinguishable. It's pretty clear they are already allowing characters to be distinguishable in the game via different color nameplates. Currently, the nameplates for NPCs are just way too similar to players, and they're easily missed, especially if you're a new player. And even if you're not a new player, if you're in an area that's packed, they can be difficult to see, especially since they move around. Another being the NPC vendor window. I don't understand why they would think the current system is in any way better than the system we have in every other game. And literally zero people have ever asked for it to be changed. When you talk with an NPC vendor, you see a menu pop up. You see the goods and prices, and then you select which ones you want to buy and how many. It's a very straightforward, easy to understand system that we use in pretty much every game, and the process needs no guides. In Apogea, you're met with two windows when interacting with a vendor that pop up with nothing in them. You have to then move your gold, which even that isn't super apparent for new players, to the vendor window that popped up in order to see the goods from the vendor. Then, after purchasing something from the vendor, the cost is subtracted from your gold that you put into that window. This is just a completely unnecessary feature or way of doing it. The argument for immersion doesn't even work on this one, because any vendor or store you want to purchase goods from, you always see the goods they have to offer. You don't put your money on the table for their goods to appear. Functionally, it's also unnecessarily confusing for new players. I guarantee there were thousands of people that probably thought the vendor just didn't have anything and moved on. I would also bet that a lot of people probably didn't even know where their gold was. Then there were more that were probably hesitant, wondering if they were about to trade all their gold away for this single item from the vendor, and thought maybe they had to split the gold before moving it. Let me know in the comments section, by the way, if any of these scenarios happen to you. Now, do these things make the game bad? Of course not. Is it a small thing? Of course it is. I think the game definitely has potential, but the new player experience is very important. The trade window thing, like I said, really not the biggest deal at the end of the day, but when new players are continuously met with frustrating or confusing experiences early on, they begin to stack, and when they stack enough, they'll quit the game. And right now, Apogea has a decent amount of those confusing, frustrating experiences for a new player that I think could be easily remedied without it being at the expense of dumbing down the game and changing its core identity. Overall, in its current state, I think Apogea will be one of the more popular old school indie MMOs, but in order for it to have bigger success, it'll need to make the new player experience easier to understand, not easier in difficulty. I want to make that distinction again. Otherwise, it'll just be another niche game that mainly pulls from the Tibia crowd. That's how I see it, at least. Did I like the game? I thought it was okay. I saw the potential in it. But I've been kind of gated from seeing more and experiencing more of the game, mainly because of the pacing, but more so the damn server queues, if I'm going to be honest. Pacing wise, I've heard it's going to be a lot of just mob grinding, which doesn't thrill me. Kind of want to go through it just to see what's at that end game, but the biggest challenge so far has been obviously the queue and just getting into the server. So there are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear your guys' experience with the game, so if you have a few minutes, please share them. I'd really appreciate that. See you guys in the next video.